I'm Evan, 33 years old, and man, have I learned that being the responsible one is a total ripoff. I've always been the steady one, never the favorite, never the one who gets away with everything. The one who has it together, my mom says, which basically means I'm the one footing the bill for everything: birthdays, graduations, school stuff, even the vet bills. Remember when the furnace died? Yeah, that was me too. It feels like I've been holding this messy family of mine together for ages, like some invisible duct tape. My sister Madison is 6 years younger. She's beautiful, graceful, and can cry on cue like nobody's business. She can make "I didn't ask to be born" sound like Shakespeare and still walk away with your wallet and an "I'm sorry." Last spring, she got engaged to this guy, Chase. He's less of a person and more like a talking mannequin obsessed with crypto and CrossFit. I never liked him, and I didn't hide it. But Madison did her usual thing, laid on the guilt trip thick, told me I was the only one she could count on, and then, oh so casually, mentioned this amazing engagement party venue she found. The catch: she just needed someone to cover the costs until she and Chase got their finances situated. I should have told her no. Man, I really should have. She texted me, showing a pic of her dream wedding dress, a Pinterest board crammed with fancy centerpieces, and a photo of us as kids, all sparkly from backyard fireworks. She wrote, "You've always been there for me. Please help make this perfect." So I said okay. I put down a deposit on the venue, this ridiculously pricey garden place with champagne fountains and a harpist, and gave them my card for the rest. I wasn't happy about it, but I figured I'd suck it up, keep things calm, be the good sister. The day of the wedding, I arrived all smiles, carrying a Tiffany blue gift bag. Inside was a ridiculously expensive pearl and diamond bracelet, something Madison had casually mentioned seeing on some famous person. It totally blew my budget, but I got it anyway. I hoped, maybe just maybe, this time she'd actually see me, not just some background decoration. I was a fool. As I walked through that fancy garden arch, expecting a hug, maybe even a simple "thank you," she practically ran up to me in her fancy shoes. She gave me this super quick peck on the cheek and then, leaning in close, whispered, "Hey, when we take pictures, could you maybe, like, stand over there? You're kind of messing up the whole look." I just stared at her like, is this a joke? But she was already gone, floating back to her photographer and that gaggle of Instagram perfect friends, all dressed in those washed-out colors that matched the flowers. Me. I was in a dark blue shirt and gray pants, freshly ironed and, totally fine for a wedding, but I guess not dreamy enough for whatever look she was trying to pull off. The whole thing felt like a slap in the face. And then, like a punch to the gut, my mom walks by, sees my expression, and mutters, "Try not to make this about you for once, Evan. It's her day." Her favorite line. Seriously, I could be literally burning alive, and she'd say that to me if I asked for help. She just kept going. I turned and saw the seating chart, all fancy with gold calligraphy, and there's my name, shoved down in the corner under miscellaneous table 9. I went over to table 9, and it was two little kids, a couple of folding chairs, one of which was practically broken, and a high chair with something sticky all over the tray. I looked across the lawn at the main table, beautiful white tablecloth, fancy silverware, all the important people. My sister's fiancé's friends, his family, my mom, my aunt, even my little cousin Ashley had a seat there. But not me. I'm the one who shelled out for this whole damn thing, and I'm stuck next to a kid who loses it if you even look at her juice box. But still, I didn't say a word. I just kept it together. I put the present on the kids' table and got myself a glass of water. I clinked my glass with theirs when they all raised their champagne flutes, and kind of winced watching Madison and Chase's first dance, that song's been played at every wedding ever. I just smiled and nodded when people asked if I was the photographer or the valet or some random date who'd gotten stood up. That was it, the final straw. It wasn't one huge dramatic moment, It was more like slowly fading away, being helpful but completely unseen. I was hiding behind a bush near the dance floor, half listening to my mom telling one of Chase's aunts how shocked she was I'd even come. She always says I find a way to skip these things. I'd practically jumped through hoops to be there. I'd juggled work, ditched a weekend getaway, bought Madison that bracelet, even paid for the whole darn venue. And I did it all because, I don't even know, some crazy part of me thought maybe it would mean something. So I put on a smile, walked over to the manager, I was way calmer than I expected, and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a letter canceling my payment authorization for the rest of the wedding, explaining I wasn't paying anything else. They were legally obligated to tell the happy couple the second I pulled the plug, and I knew they'd do it right after the cake cutting, just when it was too late to stop the whole thing from falling apart. I got out of there before things blew up, slipped out the back, walked to my car, and just sat there for a while before starting the engine. I didn't feel like I'd won, not at all. It was more like I'd finally stopped fighting a losing battle, you know. But as I drove away from that mansion and saw the lights fade in my mirror, I knew this wasn't the end. And neither was I didn't even touch my phone that night. I already knew what I'd find: a ton of missed calls, angry messages, and maybe a couple of desperate pleas to change my mind. But I couldn't face it. Not then. So I drove to this little diner way out of town, one of those places that's always open and doesn't care what you look like. Around midnight, I sat in a booth, ordered coffee I didn't even touch, and just breathed. For the first time in ages, nobody was demanding anything from me. Nobody was picking apart my clothes, my posture, my single status, or how often I called. It was just the sounds of that old, messed-up jukebox and the occasional clatter from the kitchen. The next morning, I finally checked my phone. 37 missed calls, 6 voicemails, a flood of texts from Mom, my sister, even Aunt Carol. It felt like watching a fire spread, starting small, then exploding, and finally just dying down to embers. My mom's first text was really harsh. "Evan, seriously, what gives? The place is saying your card got rejected and now we're stuck with the bill. Call me when you get a chance." Then there was Madison, and I couldn't believe what she was laying on me. "What's your deal?" Aunt Deb had to get in on it, too. "Of course, your lucky grandma isn't around to see this, Evan. She'd be devastated." Even Chase sent a message, which was wild because he never even talked to me, not directly. "Real classy, dude. You made Maddie look like a fool in front of everyone. I hope it was worth it." But what really got to me, what made my stomach clench, not because I felt bad, but because I was so angry, was the final message from my mom, sent at 3:14 a.m. "You always manage to mess things up. Just like your dad." There it was, that line, the little jab she always had ready to go, ready to twist when I wasn't doing what she wanted. My dad left when I was 12. I remembered the slamming door, the yelling, and the quiet that followed. I remembered being the one who comforted Madison when she cried, the one who got a job bagging groceries at 15 because Mom was working like crazy and we needed help. I remember thinking, I won't do that. I'll stick around. I'll be there, and I had been. For years, for every skinned knee, every late-night call about a bad date, every school trip they couldn't afford, I was the one, the helper, the reliable one. And they still didn't see me as anything more. I was just sitting there, going over those texts, over and over again. Instead of bursting into tears or screaming or chucking my phone across the room like some character in a movie, I did something way more risky. I started scheming. It wasn't really about cash. It wasn't even about getting back at anyone. Not really. It was about being free, about ending this messed-up little game we'd been playing for years, where I was always giving and they were always taking. And I was supposed to grin and say, "Anything for you," no matter how much it hurt. First thing I did was call the guy who ran the place. I said I was sorry for causing trouble, but I explained I'd stopped the payment. I told him to talk to Madison and Chase if they had any money questions. He sounded ticked off, but okay with it. Apparently, he'd seen worse. I thanked him for being cool about it and hung up. Then I went online and started cutting off the money. First, the automatic payment for Mom's electricity bill. Done. Then the monthly deposit I'd been sending Madison to supposedly help with her student loans, even though she quit school a year ago. Gone. I called the accountant I used for my freelance stuff and told him I needed to change the trust I'd set up for family emergencies. From now on, only I could touch that money if there was a problem. I wasn't being mean. I wasn't doing it to be a jerk. I was just finally choosing myself, for the first time in a long time. The fallout hit me hard right away. That night, Madison finally called me. Her voice was already super tense even before I could say anything. "Oh, so you're alive now?" she snapped. "After you embarrassed me in front of everyone and left me scrambling to cover a $6,000 bill, I had to charge it. Evan, do you know how that looks?" I let the silence stretch out a bit. "I thought I was messing up your aesthetic," I said, trying to keep it even. "Didn't want to mess up any more of your pictures." "Oh my God, you're actually playing the victim," she sneered. "I asked for one thing," I said. "No, you asked for 100 things," I cut her off, my voice deadpan. "And I gave them all to you. I paid for things you never thanked me for. I showed up when no one else did. I sat at the kids' table and clinked your happiness with water, Madison, and all I got back was a fake smile and a try not to ruin the vibe. You humiliated me long before I ever gave that envelope to the manager." There was a long, quiet moment. Then she switched gears. "Mom said you're cutting her off too. She's been crying all day. She's getting older, Evan. She needs help." "I know she's getting older," I said, "and I know she's been treating me like her retirement fund since I was 20, but I'm not her husband, I'm not dad, and I'm done being punished for the fact he left." That ended the call. She just hung up. 2 days later, I got an email from Chase. Not a phone call, not even a text. An email with the subject line, "Let's be rational." They sent me this long, official-sounding email, all about how bad family fights are and how I should really think about the long-term consequences. They even offered to pay me back for the bracelet, little by little, if I'd just let go of the money I was holding. They sent a spreadsheet and everything, laying out a 6-month payment plan. I just ignored it. That was when it hit me. Things were different now. For the first time, they were the ones begging, they were the ones scrambling, and I hadn't even done anything yet. 3 days crawled by. No phone calls, no emails, nothing, just dead silence. And you know what? It didn't even bother me. It was actually kind of nice. I just went about my life like I hadn't just turned the whole family upside down. I worked. I had lunch with a friend I hadn't seen in ages. I even went to the gym, something I hadn't had time for in months because I was always putting out fires for Madison or running errands for my mom. Then on a totally normal Thursday, my Aunt Deb called. I almost didn't pick up, but I was too curious. "Evan," she said, her voice all low and urgent, "can you come over to your mom's? It's important." "No," I said, just like that. "If Mom wants to talk, she can call me." There was a long silence. She's not doing well," Aunt Deb finally said, her voice shaky. "She's been a mess ever since the party, and now the utilities." "Utilities?" I asked. "She didn't tell you?" Deb sounded truly shocked. "So the power got cut off yesterday. At first, she figured it was just some weird thing, a technical problem. But Evan, man, she's been a mess, crying her eyes out. Says she feels like we ditched her." I just kind of froze there for a minute. I was glued to the window, watching everyone else just go about their lives like nothing was happening. It felt unreal. Finally, I told her, "Hey, you didn't exactly feel abandoned when you stuck me at the kids' table or when you compared me to Dad in that awful way. You were totally fine then, weren't you?" Aunt Deb was quiet after that. Then she leaned in real close and whispered, "Between you and me, I think she's finally getting it. She pushed things way too far. Madison, too. This whole thing really opened their eyes. They're starting to see how much you actually did or did do. Funny how that only hits them once the money stops flowing, huh?" I just shrugged. She didn't say anything back. That weekend, I escaped to the mountains. No cell service, no emails, no nothing. Just the wind whipping at my face and the sound of my boots crunching on those dry leaves. I rented a little cabin online, super basic, with a pile of firewood by the door and this ancient radio that only picked up one station. It was exactly what I needed. Sunday afternoon, I came back down and turned my phone on. 33 new messages. Apparently, Madison and Chase had thrown a little get-together that weekend, a second chance dinner for the people who missed the main event. It was meant to be a classy little get-together at a bar downtown. But since I wasn't the one paying, it ended up being a potluck at their place. We had folding chairs, a mountain of dirty dishes, and a centerpiece made of plastic flowers and a cheap bottle of wine. Someone even put a picture on Instagram with the caption, "Candlelight elegance to Costco chaos." Real smooth, right? Madison wasn't tagged, of course. I kept looking through messages and saw one from my cousin Ashley. She'd always stayed out of family stuff, but apparently she'd had enough. "Hey, Evan," it said. "Just wanted to say I saw what happened at the party, and I think you were right to walk away. You deserved better. I never said it before, but thanks for always helping when no one else would. Just wanted you to know." Wow, that one hit me hard. Still nothing from my mom. No apology, no nothing. Until Monday night, that is. I was brushing my teeth when my phone rang. It was her. I let it ring a few times before I answered. "Hey, Mom." Silence. Then she said so softly, "I didn't know it would go that far." I didn't say anything. She continued, "I thought you'd come around. You always do." Her voice was starting to break. "And when you didn't, I didn't know what to do." The lights were off and it was so quiet, I didn't feel good or happy. I felt bummed, sad that it had to get to this point for her to finally hear the silence she'd been making me live in for years. She whispered, "I never meant to hurt you." "You didn't have to mean it," I shot back. "You just had to stop it. Once." "Just once, okay, but it never happened." A long stretch of silence hung in the air. Finally, she asked, Can we just talk?" I said yes, figuring we could meet for lunch the following day, a restaurant somewhere neutral. She got there 15 minutes early, all neat hair and makeup. But her eyes, they looked exhausted, like I'd never seen them before. Not old, just vulnerable, human. We talked. We really went there, Dad. About everything, how she leaned on me, how I took the lead. The things I was always trying to do, always hoping she'd say she was proud instead of just thankful. She didn't make excuses, which shocked me more than anything. She took responsibility, not perfectly, but enough. "I guess I just got used to thinking you were the strong one," she said. "But strong doesn't mean you can't be broken, and I used you like you were made of steel." When I got home later that day, there was a small envelope waiting in my mailbox. Inside, a note in my sister's handwriting. "I know I messed up bad. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I do owe you a thank you and a check." And there it was, a personal check enclosed. Not for everything, but enough to show she really did try. I haven't cashed it. I might not, because the money wasn't really the issue. The point was finally standing up and saying, enough. I kept that check tucked away in a drawer for almost 2 weeks. Whenever I opened it to grab some socks or pull out my old baseball cap, I'd see the corner of that ivory envelope peeking out, just waiting. It wasn't just the cash. It was a written, "I'm sorry." Something I honestly never thought I'd see from Madison. But honestly, every time I glanced at that check, I just couldn't bring myself to put it in the bank. Because here's the deal with apologies, right? They aren't like money. They aren't like those little coupons you can use to magically erase the past. They're supposed to actually mean something, not just be about what something costs. And after all those years of feeling like I was just a nobody with a checking account, I really needed time to figure out what I wanted to do with it. Instead of dwelling on that, I began to focus on the person I'd been ignoring for way too long, me. It started little by little. I signed up for a pottery class every Wednesday night. I was probably the youngest person there by like 15 years, but I didn't sweat it. There was just something so calming about getting your hands dirty and making something with your own 2 hands. No one asked me for money there. No one sighed when I spoke, and nobody gave me that look like I was a backup plan, the thing they switched on when the real grown-ups were out of juice. I also started volunteering at a youth center in town, helping kids apply to college. I didn't go around bragging about it or anything. I just showed up twice a week and gave them the kind of support I wish I'd had when I was trying to figure everything out all by myself. It felt amazing to give without wanting anything back, to just help out where I could, instead of just being used. And slowly, a sense of peace started to come over me. It was about a month after the engagement party when things with my family really started to change. Madison was the first to reach out, not with money, not with some reason why she couldn't be there, but with an actual try. She suggested lunch, and this time it was at a place I actually enjoyed, not some weird, fancy health food place that made me feel out of place. When I got there, she was already waiting, messing with the cuff of her sweater. She seemed tiny, jittery, real. I know I can't take back what she said before I even sat down. And I know I've been terrible to you, not just at the party, but for ages. I used you as a crutch, and then I got annoyed when you didn't bounce me back up. I figured since you never pushed back, you were okay. But I can see now that wasn't true. And I'm sorry I didn't answer right away. I just let the silence stretch out like a shaky piece. I watched her squirm for a beat, and then she finally let out a breath. "I'm in therapy now," she added. And it wasn't because of you. It was because Chase and I had a massive fight after the party. He said I treated people like they were disposable, and for the first time I thought maybe he was right. That's when I really started to believe her. We talked for over an hour, not just about the party, but about our childhood, about Dad, about how everything always came down to appearances and getting by, and how it messed us all up. She didn't break down, neither did I, but we were real with each other. It was a good start. Mom was next. The electricity got cut off, and suddenly the bills weren't paying themselves anymore. Those weeks were brutal. But this time, she didn't go around blaming me to anyone who'd listen. She actually got her act together. She started making a budget, ditched some of her expensive cable channels, canceled all those subscription boxes, and even picked up a part-time job. It wasn't fancy work, but it was steady income. We grabbed coffee one Saturday, and she hit me with something I never expected. She said, "You know, I didn't realize how much I tied my self-worth to having stuff I couldn't afford, and how much I expected you to carry the load so I wouldn't have to face my failures." I just sat there, speechless. I was like, "Whoa, what happened?" She said, "You changed. And when you stopped carrying everything for me, I had to take a good, hard look at myself, and let me tell you, it wasn't pretty." She slipped a small envelope into my hand. Another one, but this time it wasn't a check, it was a card. Inside was a picture of me when I was 10 next to my science fair project, that crazy thing I built out of a cardboard box and tinfoil. It had a ribbon on it, second place. In her shaky handwriting, she'd written, "I never told you how proud I was that day. I should have. I'm telling you now." That picture's framed on my bookshelf now. And Chase, now we didn't suddenly become best buds or anything. But a few weeks later, after things calmed down, he texted asking if I wanted to get a drink, just the 2 of us. I almost said no, but my curiosity got the better of me. He was different that night, quieter than usual, way less cocky and pushy, no more sales pitch. He confessed after his second drink, "I never understood how much Maddie relied on you. And it hit me I hadn't grasped the weight that must have been on you. I always figured you were just aloof, but now it clicks. You weren't being distant, you were just plain exhausted." That was the closest I'd ever get to an apology from him, and believe it or not, it was enough. Time went by. The wedding planning started up again, only smaller, less extravagant. This time, Madison insisted on covering most of it. She even offered to pay me back in full for the engagement party, even though she knew I'd canceled the payment before it went through. I told her to keep the money, to spend it on something they really needed, like counseling or a decent honeymoon, or heck, even a savings account. She chuckled, a real from-the-gut laugh, and for the first time in ages, I laughed with her too. Now, nearly a year later, it's not perfect. It never will be. But it's better. I still maintain my limits. I still decline. And sometimes I still get that old pull, that itch to fix everything, to pick up the tab, to smooth things over. But now I see it for what it is, a habit built from years of guilt and just trying to survive. And I remind myself that I don't have to keep everyone else afloat, especially if it means going under myself. I didn't revert to being the one who always saves the day. I'm now the real deal, the kind of person who's there when it counts but doesn't totally burn out to please everybody. You know what's wild? Now that I quit being a pushover, people actually treat me better. I still have the bracelet. Madison never even mentioned wanting it back. It's in a little velvet box in my closet, a fancy symbol that says sometimes the best move is to just leave. And about that check, I finally tore it up. 'Cause no amount of cash could ever make up for everything I got back when I stopped propping everyone else up and just took care of myself. And to be honest, it feels amazing.